You may recognize Caly from America's Got Talent Season 11, America's Got Talent All-Stars, or some of her original music like Head Held High. Today, we're going to discuss Caly's fight with cancer as well as her music journey. Caly, welcome to TURTZED.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I will tell you that your America's Got Talent songs have popped up into my TikTok feed.
Yes.
And I am excited to talk to you about your entire journey.
Yes.
I'd love to start with America's Got Talent and what inspired you to go out for an audition.
First of all, awesome that you saw me on TikTok. I'm always wondering, like, am I still out there? I don't know. Like,
yes. And I had tears when I watched it, so I would imagine that will continue in rotation.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, but not sorry.
No,
I feel like it moves
beautiful.
you in a good way, you know?
Yes.
For like all growing up, I always was singing and just it's just what I did. I wasn't like, everyone was just like, oh, you have such a great voice. You have such a great voice. You should try out for American Idol, X Factor, whatever it was, America's Got Talent. And just, it was never like what I felt like was like in the cards for me, or never something that I like necessarily wanted to do, surprisingly. And I kind of just wanted a regular life, you know, like go to college. I wanted to be a cheerleader in college and then kind of just figure it out from there. And then I ended up battling cancer, and that kind of opened my eyes in a different way to look at life and be like, well, I was kind of given this gift. And also then tying onto my story of having cancer, I felt like it was important to share that. So I decided to like go try out for America's Got Talent. After saying no for all those years, I finally said yes, and it totally changed my life. So
I love that something beautiful came out of such a difficult situation. You were very young when you were on America's Got Talent, and so I would imagine that you were a teenager when you were diagnosed with a rare form of stage 3 ovarian cancer. Bring us back to that time when you received your diagnosis.
But probably from the time that I was like 14, so like for about a year, I slowly had like a tumor growing in my stomach. But for me, it was like I never knew it was a tumor. So like had all these different stages in my head. So like since I was a cheerleader, I was doing sports from the time I was in elementary school all the way through high school and stuff. So then I was working really hard doing like competition cheer, and my stomach started to like feel hard in areas that weren't my abs. And then the lump kind of started protruding after a certain amount of time. And honestly, TMI a little bit, but I thought I was just like backed up. And then I went on a family vacation down to Florida, and my parents started to notice like the lump, and they were like very worried. My mom got me a bunch of like laxative medication to take, and it ended up just making me extremely sick. Like this was kind of on the time of like we were driving back up to Ohio from Florida, so it was the worst time to be taking all this medication. We had to stop every hour because I had to pee all the time. And because I had cancer and what it ended up being was a tumor, that's why I had to constantly pee, because I had this tumor like pressing on my bladder. I finally get back to Ohio. I go to my pediatrician, and she just gave me like kind of like a normal checkup, or what I thought was a normal checkup, and I peed in the cup, which was like normal. Every time I'd gone to the doctor, I'd had to do that. But then I'm waiting for like 15 minutes. I'm not really sure what's going on. And she comes back into the room, and she like leans back, and to me it was giving like sassy, judgmental kind of, but like, I don't know. I don't think she meant it in that way. I don't know. But she just leaned back, and she's like, so you're pregnant. And here I am, like 15 years old, like literally had made out with a boy once, was still like kind of honestly uncomfortable even holding hands. So I'm like, I'm not pregnant. Like, it's literally impossible. I've never had sex. Like, I didn't say that because I didn't even like to use the word sex at that point in my life. So it's like, it's impossible. My dad's in the room with me. He's just hearing, he tells a story of he just was hearing like womp, womp, womp.
Yeah,
like
the minute she said pregnant,
his
just
like
head was
tuned
out of the room.
And like him hearing his, 15-year-old daughter just saying like, oh, I can't be, and not really having any like, how am I supposed to prove that,
Right.
So I'm just like, she's like, well, the only other thing it could be is a cyst or a tumor on your ovaries. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what it is then, because like I'm not pregnant. I ended up getting a blood test that showed a difference within, okay, my blood was showing I would have been 6 months pregnant, but my stomach was showing that I would have only have been like 3 months pregnant at the time.
What did it feel like to have your doctor tell you were pregnant, to continue to do all of these tests as if you were pregnant, and continue to say it is impossible for me to be pregnant?
I mean, it definitely felt like, obviously, like I just wasn't being listened to. I wasn't being heard. I wasn't being trusted or believed when I had never done anything in my life to. Obviously, the doctors didn't know this, but like my dad, like, you know who I am. You know, like, I'm an honest, trustworthy person. We have such a good relationship. So even to like, but it's just the fact, it's the science that was coming with it that I could not argue with. So like, even in my head, I was like, shit, like, if I'm pregnant, this is like,
You're Jane the Virgin.
I was like, I'm going to be so famous. Like, this is awesome. But not that I wanted to be pregnant.
No, but I mean, what else do you tell
Exactly.
yourself?
So it made me question myself, you know? Like, I felt crazy almost to a point. I was like, I was just confused. So I ended up getting an ultrasound that just showed that it was a tumor. And then we went from there.
So when they found out it was a tumor, I assume that they biopsied it and they found out that it was cancer.
Yeah.
When you got the diagnosis, what went through your head?
It's such a weird time for me because I think a lot of the serious conversations I kind of just tuned out of because I was 15 at the time. I had other things on my mind, and I kind of just let my parents, like, carry the weight. Like, obviously, I was the one carrying the weight. I had cancer. But, like, listening to the serious conversations, for me, it was just, like, I heard the doctor say, like, okay, well, you have stage 3 ovarian cancer. You're going to lose your hair. And that's, like, all I heard, you know? And I just kind of went with the motions. I've always been a person to this day. Like, I kind of just go with the flow. And I think I also decided at the time that's all I could do was go with the flow and take it as every day came. So, I mean, I felt bad that I would have to tell my cheerleading coach I was not going to be able to join the competitions, even though I practiced with them, you know, all winter long and stuff. And I felt guilty for that when I had cancer, you know? So I think I just still had the mindset of a teenager at the time.
It's hard to imagine getting that diagnosis. And from my experience, when I've experienced trauma, I do understand what you're talking about when you say, I just tuned it out and had to get through the day. I also understand that feeling of guilt that you're letting someone down or you can't help them. When did you actually process that this was a reality and that you were going through it? Did you ever let yourself feel it?
Yeah, there were definitely times I listened to, like, I honestly didn't cry that often, but there were a couple of times when I would cry for, like, 5 to 10 minutes and then just, like, okay, like, that's it, like, suck it up. Or I would cry a lot to the song Cancer by My Chemical Romance, and it's just pretty much, I don't know if there's, like, a other meaning to it, but the whole song is about, you know, like, him going through cancer and losing his hair and like, having the relationship with his siblings and stuff. And every time I'm gonna kind of thinking about the song, but yeah, that song definitely helped me get through a lot. I never really talk about that one because it's always like about fight song and stuff and like the positive, but I think having that, which actually helped me go through my feelings a little more and like dig into like the hurt of it, was super important for me. But I would say, like, I didn't fully realize the depth of it until after I was kind of through it and I was in remission and I started to go visit kids who were not going to make it out and just kind of, like, talk to them about their stories. And then I realized how, like, what I just went through and how significant that was.
one, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that ever, let alone as a teenager. I can relate to finding those songs that just you hear and you break down because they almost feel like they were written for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you often feel that you feel your emotions more through music than if you were just thinking about it?
Yes, definitely. I think sometimes I'm even the type of person, like, I definitely need to get therapy because sometimes I just, like, and I just kind of shut everything off. Like, if I don't want to deal with my emotions, I don't deal with it, and then they don't really come out until I'm listening to a song that might have a totally different message, but the way that I'm feeling the music or maybe even it's just, like, one or two lyrics within the song, I am able to work through different scenarios or think about what I'm going through after listening to the song, being like, okay, like why did that mean so much to me, you know? So yeah, there are a lot of songs like that. A lot of like Florence and the Machine, a lot of Paramore. Yeah.
And when you were visiting the kids who were not going to make it, obviously you said that is where your emotions came out. And you also had to have had so much strength leading up to that. Where did that strength come from to get you to the point where you could look at it in the rearview mirror and also give back to those who were not going to make it?
I think it's in my life, it had been like a constant thing taught by my dad to like never give up and always just do your best. So I think even when I was fighting for my life, quote unquote, like that was kind of in the back of my head. Like, I'm just going to like get through this and I'm going to fight for it and I'm not going to give up because I can't give up. So I think that was like just a constant message. Yeah.
I got a little emotional for a second when you said never give up, because when I was at one of my most depressed moments, I actually got a tattoo with an infinity symbol on my side. And through it, it says never give up. And the way that you felt when you thought about the song specifically, it just hit me. And it's such a beautiful message because everyone goes through difficult things.
Yeah.
And I think you sharing your story today is just one example of seeing someone get to the other side. And you being so open with this today, my hope is that someone who may be going through something similar can hear it and utilize the conversation that we have as that spark of hope to say, if she could get through it, I can get through it.
Exactly. And I mean, that's my whole thing when it comes to like sharing my story. You know, I'm not just sharing it to relive the experience in my head, and I'm sharing it, you know, so other people can take that message and whatever they need to from it. Also, a lot of times, like, people will DM me and be like, oh, well, I'm going through this, and I know it doesn't compare to you going through cancer, but I'm like, it doesn't need to compare. It's not about comparing or like who had a harder time. Everything is relative, you know, to your existence and what you had to go through in life. So it doesn't matter if you relate exactly to cancer, but it could even be you having financial struggles, you know, for the first time ever, or for financial struggles for all the time, like whatever it is, you know. So
when you think about that time in your life, you're giving back, you're in remission. You decided to go on America's Got Talent.
Yes.
And you shared part of your story, which is what we just talked about. And then you sang Fight Song. Of course, hearing your story and then hearing your unbelievably beautiful voice sing Fight Song is just, if you have not listened, you absolutely need to go and listen. Find it on YouTube. It is absolutely beautiful and definitely one of those songs that brought tears to my eyes. When you get out on stage and you realize you're about to do this, what did that feel like?
At the time, I don't know why, I was just very like going with the flow with everything, and like I wasn't extremely nervous, but there was definitely that weight there that's like, this is going to change something. Like, it's definitely like, I think it's called like a canon moment, people call it, or whatever. But it was definitely like one of those moments in my life where it's like something's about to flip here, and I really hope I do good so it does flip, and like my life will take a turn. And I don't know, it was just kind of like and as I said, I never really wanted to be like famous. It wasn't what I wanted to do, but just being there, singing, really feeling it, I was like, no, I think this is like what I'm supposed to be doing. And then obviously getting the feedback from all the judges, and specifically Simon, was, that was just the cherry and sprinkles on top.
Any positive feedback from Simon, I would imagine, feels incredible in the music world. But you had something very different. Mm-hmm. You had Simon's first golden buzzer.
Yes.
And so he hits the golden buzzer and the gold confetti falls. I literally have chills. What went through your head in that moment?
I mean, at the time, each judge had one buzzer a season to give to an act that they really fell in love with. And just the fact that, I went out on that stage knowing Simon as like, you sound like a dying cat type, guy. Mm-hmm. And just all of a sudden, just to finish my song, to do my best, and for him to not only give me the positive feedback, but then give me his one golden buzzer, kind of the same thing. It was like, stuff is changing, and like I'm supposed to be here doing this. Yeah. And so yeah. It was a beautiful moment. And you were on season 11. You went back to All Stars in 2023, I think. Yes, it was like a year and a half ago.
But there was some time in between.
Yeah.
So you finished high school. What made you want to move to LA and pursue a music career?
After I was on America's Got Talent the first time, I had like a manager, and he was just kind of like, if you want to actually pursue music and you want to, get in studios with great songwriters and record music and write your own stuff, he was like, I honestly think you should move to Los Angeles and you should give this a try. So I packed my stuff up. My dad and me took a cross-country drive in my little 2002 yellow Bug. I miss that Bug so much.
I would, honestly, if I ever move across the country, after interviewing your dad, he is one of the most wonderful people. I would kill for like that cross-country trip, because everything he says is just so inspired and also just fun. Like, he's such a good sense of humor.
Exactly. No, he is he's very touching and inspiring. I grew up with like the hilarious, like we were always laughing, like just doing crazy stuff. So no, it was such a fun road trip. Like I will never forget it. And then just also like after the fact, him dropping me off, because he dropped me off at his brother's house with my uncle. So he lived out here at the time, which was nice to at least be moving in with family. Yeah. But it was so sad too, just him like, having to go back to Ohio, get on the plane. And we just sat in the room for a bit, and he was just like crying. And wow, why is your podcast making me so emotional?
Sorry.
No, I was just talking about things that I honestly haven't talked about in a minute. There's a song by Miley Cyrus and Billy Ray called Butterfly Fly Away. And we literally sat there and just like sang it together. And my dad is he's not a singer, but we just had that moment. And it was Butterfly Fly Away. It's like, this is your time to like spread your wings and go. And I gotta go. And yeah, so it was a beautiful moment.
It's interesting that all of the milestones in your life are marked by a song. And you're now not only singing, but you're also writing your own music.
Yes.
What inspires you when you write?
So many things inspire me. I mean, I think when I first started writing, like 17, 18, and I was being kind of placed in sessions with a lot of people, and they would get a brief of what I had gone through and my story and stuff. It was kind of like told that we should write about something positive. We should write about, the fight. We should write about, inspiring people. And that was cool for a while, but it really wasn't like at the core of like who I was. I was like, I went through cancer. I've shared my story, but that's not everything. So I kind of took a step back from like constantly being in sessions with people, just so I could like reframe and kind of just revisit what I really wanted to talk about. And I've gotten into like my long-term relationship at this point. So now I just write about just whatever the hell I'm going through. And it's kind of taken a total like 180 from writing about being this positive, inspiring person to being this vulnerable, but also having that inspiring thing. At the end of the day, I always want people to take something away from my music, but it's a little more like heart hurt, you know, and like it's my own therapy, me writing. As I said, I still need to go talk to someone for therapy and, you know, the pro way, but, you know, just writing things down, the hard stuff that I'm going through really helps me get through things. So, yeah, whether that be if I'm getting into an argument with my partner, or I'm feeling very depressed, or I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling like I'm not getting anywhere in life. So that's kind of like, honestly, a lot of what I write about. Yeah.
When you are in those moments of feeling stuck or feeling depressed, as you think about those moments, I can't help but wonder that connects to your story broadcasted was you beat cancer and you are a fighter. But that's one part of you.
Yeah.
And you even said there's so much more to you. Do you feel like the weight of that story has impacted other parts of your life that you feel like you can't necessarily share because you were brought into the spotlight as this fighter and you maybe don't want to let people down?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I feel like, but it's not really for other people necessarily. I would say there's times when I do want to just give up and I want to move out of LA and I want to just go like start like a simple life somewhere else where I don't have to like worry about constantly making content or posting. And yeah, it is at the end of the day. Sometimes you do feel like, you know, I still have to be this inspiring person or whatever. But there have been many times where I have made just like a simple post that's like, you know, I haven't been doing too well for the past couple of months. I hope you guys can appreciate, like, I hope you guys are okay with my little hiatus. And then the amount of messages I get that are like, girl, like, take your time. Like, it's okay. Like, we are all just human. And I think that's a beautiful part about the story that I've shared and the people that I have brought into my fan base or my circle or my friend fan base or whatever you want to call it, you know? Just understanding people who aren't going to make me feel bad about talking about whatever the hell I want to talk about or feeling however I feel, you know?
100%.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if that answered the question.
No,
perfectly, but
it did. And I also love that the more vulnerable you are, the more love you get back.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that I struggle to post on social media. I sit here and do a podcast, and I love this, and I love having that in-person connection. I think sometimes social media feels too disconnected for me, and I grew up isolating myself. I spent a lot of time alone, and I love the idea of social media for connection, but I want the authenticity. And I love that you don't post during it. You're not posting to say, I'm struggling. You take the time for you and post after. But that authenticity brings you so much love. And I love hearing that, because that, to me, is the point of social media and all these platforms, is to build more of a connection and more understanding and share your honest story, because I'm sure you also get messages that are very similar or straight up say, I've been struggling for the last 3 months. It was just nice to hear someone else share that as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's super important I think it's so hard for like me as an artist or trying to break out more as an artist, and only post every once in a while on social media. There's this weird thing where it's like, if I'm not being consistent, then no one really sees my stuff.
Well, that's the algorithm.
I just love the algorithm, Miss Sassy Pants. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it is about connection. It is about just, being real so other people can be real. And that's kind of been my whole message for years on end at this point, kind of after I got out of the whole, like, just uplifting, inspiring story. It's just been like, I'm going to be me at every stage of who I am so that you can see someone doing that, and then you can be yourself at every stage of who you are, and just not, thinking that feeling a certain way is wrong, because at the end of the day, there's only so many human emotions, and they're all meant to be felt, like how beautiful that we get to feel everything. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, because for so many points in your life when you had to get through something, you talked about shutting off those emotions, and I can relate to that. Mm-hmm. I also think when you have been through a difficult time, for me, it's harder to feel the happy emotion, the excitement, because you never know what's around the corner. And it takes so much work to build up to, it's really easy to feel sad and angry and frustrated and all of these negative emotions. I think trusting the good emotions, the happy, is harder, and that really is the work.
That's so true. And I wonder if, like, I kind of, in the back of my mind, is, how you said, being afraid to feel the happy emotions because something else can change. All growing up, I used to be very, as I said before, like the word like blasé about a lot of things. And I wonder if because of just my childhood and like religious trauma and like all of that, is that why I was kind of always the same way. My mom would literally get mad at me for not getting like excited over things or like overly happy. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know why. I'm just very like chill and like kind of just take things as they come. Yeah. Lately in life, I have been, as I said, trying to feel every emotion fully, and I do get more excited about things, and I see things as more of, beautiful gifts from the universe, and I am excited about things. But I do wonder if that's why I was that way as a kid, kind of expecting the worst to happen,
It's hard to think about that childhood trauma in terms of how it impacted you throughout your life, because I wouldn't be here today talking about anything with you if I didn't have my journey. And also, that was in some ways a gift because it helped you get through your battle with cancer. And so we have to accept both sides of it. We can't just take the good and we can't just take the bad. If we learn from negative experience and work through it and open ourselves to those emotions, what comes out on the other side is so beautiful.
Very true.
And it is not easy work. As you think about your musical journey and the emotions you felt while writing, can we walk through a couple of your songs and talk about what those looked like?
Yes, please.
So you went back on America's Got Talent All-Stars, which is incredible. This time, you went out and sang your own song, Head Held High.
Yes.
Again, tears in my eyes as I watched it. I feel a lot through music as well, so I understand.
Good.
What inspired you to write that specific song? And let's start there. I have a follow-up, but let's start with what inspired you.
I mean, that one it's very cut and dry, There was actually one of the first songs that I wrote in a studio session. Like, I never, had a producer and had a songwriter in a room with me before. And so I was very nervous at the time, but I knew that one of the first songs I wanted to write about was my journey with cancer and was, just about how I felt through it all, which was kind of this, almost in a way, when I look back on it, like a little bit of toxic positivity. But I think that helped me get through it. It was like, this is what it is, and I'm only going to focus on the good stuff, and I know I'm going to get through it. I'm never going to give up. And so that was kind of what it was about. Just with no matter what's going to happen, I'm going to be prepared for the worst. But it's always going to be with my head held high, and I'm going to get through the hard stuff with my head held high. And that's pretty much the gist of the song, is just always keeping your head up, always knowing your strength and remembering your strength. And just, it was very, I think, euphoric being able to like get those thoughts out finally onto paper, onto a song, which I never in a million years would have thought, I would be able to do. So it was really cool to like see all that come into fruition. And
When you look back at that now, how does it make you feel to have written it, sang it on America's Got Talent All-Stars, and received such positive feedback from all the judges?
Just like proud of myself for being able to try something new. I mean, I've literally, the only song I ever wrote in my life, I was like 9 years old, and it was a love song to Taco Bell. So
that needs to come to Apple and Spotify very soon.
I know. I've heard that from my mom a million times.
At least a TikTok, please.
I have to. No, I still love Taco Bell. Yeah, so just being able to finally write about my journey in my own words, not having to sing fight song over and over again, which I love Rachel Platt and love that song. Obviously, it like started everything for me and helped me get through the experience, but it was like writing my own fight song.
But it's a piece of you. It's not all of you. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, where when you're brought into the spotlight with one very specific moment, that's the view that people have. And we are so much more complicated, and we change every single day.
Totally. And I think like with social media and the way a lot of people see things, if they aren't in the creative end of things and on, you know, the ones on the camera, I think it's easy for people to see that as like your one thing and like that's just your story.
But it's so inspiring.
It is.
And I think that's why people hold on to it.
Which I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm just saying.
I know, and I love that. You recently released a song called Tread Lightly. It is a very different song than Head Held High.
Yes.
Tell me what that song means to you and what inspired it.
Yeah, so Tread Lightly is about it's just kind of about the metaphor of being like water as a person and just like kind of just flowing through life and taking things as they come. I was inspired by literally the ocean and all bodies of water, but specifically I've been going to the North Shore of Hawaii for the past couple of years with my friends for like kind of like Christmas break. And I'll just go out, and the waves at the beach we stay at are kind of insane. Like, I probably shouldn't be in the water, but every time I get in, I just kind of let myself be taken out when the tide pulls back and kind of thrown around sometimes, or just flow back to the shore. And I always felt this, like, I started to feel this very just like connectedness with the ocean and just allowing it to be what it is and not being scared of it. Because honestly, for years, I was like, I liked the ocean. It's fun to go to the ocean, go to have a beach day, whatever. But I never would really like get in the water and have like a ton of fun. And finally, after I like felt that like relationship with the ocean, I wrote Tread Lightly, and like I kind of just started to think about life. And one of the lyrics is, I might find more peace if I go under. And that's kind of just like about me finally being in tune with my darker side and my darker emotions and not ignoring them for so long, and then working through them and then finally finding my peace. So it's just about like overall feelings in life and the ocean, which I love.
It's so beautiful that nature has inspired that song, and then to also understand the metaphor of getting in touch with those darker emotions. I struggled for a long time not being in therapy or even being in therapy, where I would just go in and talk about what happened and then leave and go back.
Right.
But as I was in those darker times and I started to feel those emotions, I had to ease myself into it. And even in therapy with someone that I trust, it can be scary to start to feel those emotions and work through it.
Totally.
You're doing it in a very unique way of writing music. What does that process look like for you in the moment of writing? How does that feel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like writing a song every single day. A lot of my life is like just living my life. Could be whatever I do during the day. Like I have a day job or, just whatever. And then letting myself feel my emotions as a human being every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then there'll be a point when I'm like, okay, like it's time to write now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't write out of necessity. I write out of inspiration, really.
And letting it out.
Yeah. So then I'll like sit down and I'll think about the ways I've been feeling for the past, maybe week or 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and then writing about that.
Very, very reflective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely more reflective than like, I mean, sometimes I have cried, but it's not ever like kind of like I'm sitting here right now because, or actually there have been times that like maybe I've gotten in a like little fight with my partner and like I'm sitting there crying and like just like, you hate me, like whatever. But yeah, I guess there's like many different techniques and ways that I go about it. But I would say the reflection way of writing is
starting to tap into that emotion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it is just like about going back and like thinking about. I do think I struggle a lot with just a light depression overall in my life and ADHD and anxiety. And I think ADHD will go into me feeling like I'm not really getting anywhere. I'm constantly stuck. I have no like goals that I'm hitting, or I don't know what I'm doing.
Do you feel like that relates back to your religious trauma that you lightly touched on earlier?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, it's so hard for me to say like what I still carry from having that trauma. I think I was just talking to some people about like just specific things. Like a lot of it was, I think really the main thing with that was like the excitement thing, what I was telling you about. Like I wouldn't be able to feel fully happy or excited because a lot of it had to do with like the end of times was like what our religion was very like focused in, was like very fear-based, and you have to live your life this way because Jehovah can see every little thing that you're doing, and if you don't do everything right, then you're not going to be able to live in paradise earth. And then there would be things that like you just always feel like you're living in the end of times. Like kind of what even matters,
Of course.
So there's definitely something there, but as I said, you need therapy. I don't really know.
I do. I mean, I definitely think that you reflecting on that the way that you just did is really powerful. And I think there is a connection between that prep of end of times and how you reacted to receiving a very serious cancer diagnosis and having gotten through that and working on feeling your emotions and being excited in the moment, which also probably means you're going to be excited about something in the future.
Yeah.
I understand that. It's that waiting for the other shoe to drop. When is this going to get taken away? When is the end of times?
Yeah.
So even in your subconscious, if that's still there, even a tiny bit, something you don't think about, of course, I fully understand. I personally have felt like that in different reasons, but that was definitely where my anxiety was coming from. And I think it's... everyone goes on their own journey, and you're starting with music, which I love. And we've talked obviously prior, but talked about exploring therapy and going more into that. And I'm excited for you to continue to explore and to look inward and feel those emotions. And I'm also excited to hear the music that comes out of that, because as your life changes, the music's going to change. When you think about our whole conversation today, what is the message you want to leave people with?
I think overall, as I said, like my main message that I try to convey all the time is just like, you should be comfortable being yourself at every stage of yourself, and I never want people to feel like they're a burden or they aren't allowed to share what they're going through, because that's what creates deeper depression and, suicide at sometimes, is when you feel like you have no one to share with. So there's always going to be someone that you can share with. It might take a little bit of extra work and patience to find those people, but people will listen, and you're not alone. Even if there is no one to talk to, you're not alone. And I don't know, we can get through anything. It's just gonna take a little bit of work, and yeah.
And we have to do it together.
Yeah, we have to do it together somehow. I don't know. I just you're not alone, and you can get through it. You got this.
I love that.
Yeah.
What is something that someone told you that impacted your life and you'll never forget?
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of repeated it a couple of times here already, but it's definitely from my dad just telling me. And it was honestly like not that deep at the time. It was because I was like struggling between volleyball, and my coach during volleyball was like super like heavy-handed. I don't know if that's the right word, but like super like kind of mean sometimes. But I loved volleyball. But then I was also getting into competitive cheer at the time, and I loved cheer like more than volleyball. And I told my dad, I was like, I just don't know if I want to do this anymore. Like, it's too much. I don't want to be on the volleyball team. And he's like, you're not going to give up. He was like, I'm literally not letting you. He's like, you have a whole entire team counting on you. You've put in so much work. Why would you want to give up? There's only so many more months of the season left. So just do it. And it was, not that deep at the time, but it definitely has like guided me through so many things. Even now in my music career, I'm not going to give up, because at the end of the day, I know that I enjoy doing it. I know that I love it. It's going to get hard sometimes.
The never give up, just as I think back to our conversation, there's 3 things that stand out to me. So 1, he told you that in the context of never give up because he didn't want you to let your team down. Which is, we have to be there for the people that are relying on us. The second part is, it also inspired this spark for you to not give up on yourself.
Yeah.
And so you have both of those meanings. And then the third, as you say, never give up, it's just a broader spectrum, right? It's never give up on yourself, but it's also never give up on your dreams. Never give up on the little things that you're doing. Right. Take it one day at a time. Don't give up on not feeling your emotions or not finishing that song. And so I actually love that it was not the reason that he told you that it was a different reason, which is very powerful in itself, but that stuck with you and actually morphed into the circumstances that were there. And
there's so many things I feel like we go through in life that, I mean, it shapes us as who we are. We would never imagine that,
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think that's a beautiful message, knowing that you have that tattooed and everything too.
I'll show you after. Yeah. I will say, I did cheerleading, all-star cheerleading my senior year of high school.
Oh my God.
And the rush that you get for 2.5 minutes.
Yep.
There's almost 1 or 2 other things in my life that have given me that same rush. The first competition I ever did, I cannot believe I'm about to share this. We've been practicing. It was myself and my friend Michelle, and we were the same height. She's unbelievably strong. We would throw these women into the air so high. Yeah. It was crazy. And I was always worried about my forearms, because it would just kill when you caught someone.
Yeah.
But on this particular day, when the flyer came down, we're at probably 10 to 15 seconds into the routine.
Oh, jeez.
She kicked me in the balls.
No.
And for 2.5 minutes, you feel like you don't breathe.
Right.
I couldn't even explain to you what that felt like, on top of having to throw people in the air.
The competition at this point?
It was in the competition. This is the first competition I ever did.
No.
And I will never forget that moment, because it was...
It's high stakes.
It's high stakes, and never give up. I
It
couldn't let my team down. I had to fight through the pain. It kind of takes the wind out of you, and you're already huffing and puffing, running around. And then I had to tumble on top of it. But I will never forget that moment, because it was It was like, yeah, of course this is going to be my first competition, but I guess you got the worst out of the way first.
Exactly. Oh my God, I love hearing that you were doing competitive cheer too.
Yeah, we did. I did one season of it my senior year of high school.
Were you in did you do tumbling and stuff beforehand or?
Yeah, I started gymnastics when I was probably 3 and did it throughout high school. And I did a little bit of cheerleading in 7th or 8th grade. I was bullied a little bit, made me stay away from it. I helped coach. I say coach, but I was just a high school kid and I loved the coach. So she would let me come and help prep stunts and watch awesome. And all those things. And that's kind of how I stayed a little bit involved. But my senior year, I did All-Stars because it wasn't at my high school.
Exactly.
It was in a different state. No one really knew that I was doing it. We didn't have social media the way we did today. And I felt safe doing it with the group of people that I did it with. But it was an incredible experience.
I don't know what you're talking.
So
no, I was gonna say it's crazy though that you had to take all of those steps just to do what you wanted to do, you know, and feel safe doing it. Yeah.
It was definitely part of my story, and I'm so thankful that I did find a way to do it. And it's hard not to look back and think I could have been doing this for four more years. And so I try not to look at it that way. I try to look at it as the amazing experience it was for the period of time. And we have more emotions around it than, you know, we would like sometimes.
And I think that everything happens in a certain way for a reason. And I do think that we can change our stories, but things are written for a reason, you know?
And it's always part of us. It's just how we integrate it into the rest of our life.
Yeah. And I think maybe, you know, I wouldn't be here talking about this in LA if it weren't for the hardships I went through. And I don't know if you can relate with that with
absolutely
what you're doing, you know? So
absolutely. I couldn't change something because each step brought me to sitting on the couch with you today. And now we're going to turn the tables. So although we talked a little bit about the cheerleading, now's the time that you get to ask me one question, and it can be anything you want.
Okay. So I'm totally not an interviewer, and I know you just were saying that someone made you cry from how good their question was the other day. That probably won't happen here. But I did like the comment you made about how you feel like every stage of my life kind of does have a song attached to it. So I was wondering, at the most pinnacle point of your life, what would be the song that you would attach to that? And what was that point? What were you going through at that point in your life? And then what's the song?
There have been so many.
So I am bringing the tears.
You're getting me very close. One album that I just love is Reputation.
Okay.
And I relate so much to it because I didn't let people see who I was. And I didn't like the person I was at times because it was measured and I had to do things a certain way. And I love the idea of becoming who you are and being unapologetic, of course being kind, but just taking back your reputation and who you are. One of the first songs that I can remember was Taylor Swift, Dear John. And I had been dating for a very short period of time someone when I was in my early 20s. And it led me to a very dark place. And hindsight is 20/20, and it did not work out. But when it didn't work out, that song tore me apart. One, because it had his name specifically in it. And two, I just felt like it was just exactly what I was feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, you were talking about, it was really hard for me to feel my emotions because for a very long time, I couldn't be angry. I couldn't be upset. I couldn't be too happy. I held it all in. But when I listened to music in the car, the amount of times that I would cry to different songs, some of them were sad, but some of the empowering songs make me cry too. 100%. Because it gave me the hope that things could get better. And I think that is just such a beautiful piece of music that everyone's going to relate to it differently. And yeah, I don't know that I could tell you all of them, but the Dear John one is the first one that I think I actually let myself feel the emotions and really stands out. And even to this day, the minute it starts, the tears start. But every day it could be a different song. Right. It could make me laugh. It could make me cry, but that was the first.
That's such a good one. I mean, that's exactly what she's saying too, is like, I see it all now that you're gone. Like, I'm finally able to like feel it and see it.
Yeah.
So
I really appreciate you singing the song and saying the lyrics because, of course, now I'm ready to cry. So I appreciate that you brought the emotions out in me today.
Yes.
And thank you so much for joining.
That was my goal. Since you told me that I had to ask you a question, I've been stressing. Like, oh my God, what am I going to ask Carly? But okay, I'm so glad you shared that with me, though. And I'm so glad that you're a Swiftie, too.
Yes, of course. No question. And I cannot wait for the Reputation re-release. And I'm not going to clown. I'm not going to anticipate. But when it drops, do not talk to me for 24 hours.
I'll text you. Like,
done.
What do you think? It's kind of crazy you say that too. And you just reframed Reputation totally in my brain, because when it first came out, I was not the biggest fan. I'm very much like an OG or like Evermore Folklore Swiftie. And it was hard for me to get into Reputation because it was so different, but you explaining it like from your experience, not from like, and obviously Taylor has her own like
of
things,
course.
But I wasn't able to like get it, but I totally get it more now with like your interpretation or whatever you want to say of it, you know?
I think that's the beautiful thing about music. And as we're just talking about Taylor Swift, she writes these deeply personal songs that are so relatable, but everyone also has their own interpretation. And I think if we asked 100 people how they felt about your song, we'd get 100 different answers.
Right.
And it doesn't matter because it touched each person in a different way.
And that's why I think, like, that's why I say, like, there's not that many things that we're going through. There's not that many there's only so much to feel.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Inside Out, there's 5 emotions.
Yeah, no.
Inside Out 2, they combine them, but really there's 5 base emotions.
Right. No, and I actually find a lot, I mean, I could be very wrong with this, but I always say, like, I feel like, honestly, a lot of things stem from 2 emotions, and that's either love or fear. So break it down even further. It's not that difficult.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me
today. Oh my God, I wish we had so much more time. No, thank you.